It's a beautiful Thursday afternoon and we are back on your television. This is Joy News, independent, fearless, and credible. And of course, this is your most authoritative program, The Pulse, here on Joy News. And from our studios here in Accra and around the world, I'd like to say welcome. My name is Elton Brobe. Now this afternoon, opposition NDC criticizes the Electoral Commission's preparedness in the ongoing voter registration exercise as they lament the process across the country has been far from smooth. We'll hear from the chairperson of the party as he takes on the Electoral Commission for failing to disclose the serial numbers of the BVR case used in the ongoing registration exercise. Stay as we bring you a response from the Electoral Commission. Meanwhile, the Electoral Commission is cautioning party agents and individuals against any form of violence in the ongoing limited voter registration exercise as police arrest 3 at Tepa in the Ashanti region for disrupting the process.
Security are there. Every center you go, you meet no less than 5 police officers. They are there to protect the people there and to protect their equipment. And nobody will be permitted to disrupt our programs.
We have details as the EC says it is resorting to offline registration as backup for the internet and technical hitches that have affected the process in the first 2 days of the registration. And later in the bulletin, today marks exactly 23 years since 126 soccer fans lost their lives after a midweek match between Accra House of Folk and Kumasi Asantehene degenerated into violence after the final whistle. We'll explore the lessons learned from the disaster more than 2 decades on. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Community Zigilo, affordable, safe sanitation for all. And of course, we are live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV 125. You can always catch us on our Facebook and YouTube pages, as well as myjoyonline.com. My name is Elton Brobe. You stay right there. We'll be back with more on The Pulse this afternoon. Welcome back to The Pulse here on Joy News. And of course, this is your election headquarters. Your election headquarters on Joy News is brought to you by Petrosol, your clean fuel in full quantity, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CIMA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA, together as the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants, and of course, the German Ozone Medical Center, Alternative Therapy, Dental Wellness, and Beauty. And of course, they are the sponsors of your election headquarters for an informed electorate. Now, this afternoon, let's start from the headquarters of the National Democratic Congress, the NDC. And they are criticizing the Electoral Commission's preparedness in the ongoing voter registration exercise as they lament the process across the country has been far from smooth. Chairperson of the party, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, addressing a news conference a while ago, took on the EC for failing to disclose the serial numbers of the VVR case used in the ongoing voter registration exercise.
Members of the media and Ghanaians, because you are all Ghanaians as well, we wish to serve notice. A notice is hereby served that NDC registration agents across the country will resist the EC's clandestine attempts aimed at diminishing transparency in the voter registration exercise. Let me emphasize that our agents must activate the party's high-tech application systems to transmit all serial numbers of BVR kits in their district and electoral areas to the National Elections and IT Directorate of the party, with or without the approval of the Electoral Commission. We shall not falter. We shall not relent. We shall not tire. And we will live true to our mantra that NDC, no retreat, no surrender. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not expect the Electoral Commission of Ghana to act as the conduit through which Akufo-Addo will implement his avowed determination not to hand over power to a visionary, experienced, and trustworthy John Dramani Mahama. MPP must choose peaceful transfer of power from the MPP president to the National Democratic Congress in their own interest. The 2024 elections will not be business as usual. The EC must sit up. The EC must answer the 35 questions posed by the NDC on the stolen biometric equipment. And the EC has no option but to allow our agents to record the serial numbers of the BVR kits deployed for this registration exercise if they have nothing to hide. Improved transparency, ladies and gentlemen, is beneficial to all stakeholders. But above all, it enhances the credibility of the elections administration body, which in our case is the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Finally, let me use this opportunity to repeal our call to the Ghanaian population, particularly through the civil society organizations, chiefs, opinion leaders, leaders of faith-based organizations, etc., to join us to demand more transparency and fairness, which is a necessary precondition for peaceful elections. Anybody who is interested in peaceful elections must begin demanding transparency and fairness in the elections. You don't sleep over injustice and then come around to call the one who is being treated unfairly to secure peace for the country. We shall not be the victims of peace. If we all want peace, let us work towards peace. And the beginning point is to ensure that there is fairness. If there is fairness, everybody would be comfortable. Those that are defeated will accept, and those that win will be happy because they worked for the victory. And the totality of Ghanaian population will be happy because they have had the opportunity to exercise their inalienable right of self-determination, i.e., to choose their own leaders. Before I sit down, I want to address a release that we just had when we were walking to this to address this press conference from the Electoral Commission. Yeah. We get the impression that they were trying to preempt this press conference by answering questions that have not been asked yet. And because they did not have the patience to listen to the questions, they are bound to make mistakes in their answers. For the purpose of those who have not read it, I'd like to make a few references. The Electoral Commission wishes to address the NDC's request for serial numbers of biometric voter registration kits currently deployed in the field for the limited voter registration exercise. The Commission wishes to highlight that the integrity and security of our electoral process are paramount. Each BVR kit, as a critical component of this process, is assigned a unique serial number. This number plays a crucial role in the operation of these devices, particularly in the generation of activation codes essential for their functionality as well as tracking the location of their movement. Releasing these serial numbers to any external parties, including political entities, poses substantial risks to the security and integrity of our registration process. That is why this has never been done since biometric voting system was introduced in Ghana. The specific risks are as follows, and I'll take the risks one by one and prove to you how hollow this response is. First, compromise kit security. The serial numbers are integral to the security framework of BVR kits. Disclosure of these numbers could potentially allow unauthorized access to the devices, thereby compromising integrity of the voter registration process. What about this?
Of course, this is your election headquarters. You've been listening to the chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu-Nketia, addressing some concerns they have with the ongoing limited voter registration exercise and the use of some BVR by the Electoral Commission. They are demanding that the serial numbers of the BVR are, provided. Now, before the NDC went live with this news conference, the EC had issued a statement on this very subject. And of course, my colleague, Weshigo Johnson, joins me here in studio with details of the EC statement. And of course, we're just listening to Johnson Asiedu-Nketia, who said that...
actually read portions of the statement.
Exactly.
But we will provide further details of the statement issued by the Electoral Commission.
So what does at least the EC saying regarding the provision of the serial numbers of the BVR case?
So the EC says that it exposes them to substantial risk, and by providing such one is inimical to the security of the electoral process and the integrity of the electoral process.
Is the statement explaining the kind of risks?
Exactly. So it goes on. So Johnson Asiedu-Nketia made mention of the first one, the compromising of the kit security. Says that serial numbers are integral to the security framework of the BVR kit, and disclosing of these numbers could potentially allow unauthorized access to these devices, thereby compromising the integrity of the voter registration process. The second one is targeted manipulation of the risk. Knowledge of the serial numbers could enable targeted attacks on specific BVR kits located at certain parts of the country, thereby causing chaos, political conflict, and operational challenges within the polling centers. The third one is phishing and fraud. So actually, if these serial numbers are put out there, people could resort to them or rely on them for some criminal activities, including fraud. And then the fourth one is operational integrity. So the Electoral Commission goes on to say that it maintains a structured protocol for the activation and operation of the BVR kits, designed to ensure that all devices are used solely for their intended purpose and authorized personnel duly. So disclosing these numbers disrupts the protocol that they have put in place. And then the last one, they rely on the law, saying that given the above potential risk that disclosing serial numbers of the BVR case could pose, it is pertinent for stakeholders to address their minds to Section 7, subsection 1J of the Right to Information Act 2019, which provides in part as follows, that if information is exempt from disclosure where the information contains matters which, if disclosed, can reasonably be expected endanger a system, including computer and communication systems, for which security is reasonably required. And so these are the reasons that
why they cannot provide the serial number. But they provided a roadmap
exactly
to address the concerns of the NDC and those who have similar issues?
Several of them. So they indicate the first one that they are gazetted centers. So all voter registration centers are officially gazetted, and all political parties and other stakeholders have access to this information, allowing them to track accurately and transparently registered voters from each registration center. And so they say that there is no cause for alarm if this system has been put in place. The second one they put out is polling agent oversight. So they stress that political parties have agents who consistently monitor the activities and operations of what goes on at the centers, and so there cannot be any mishappening there. And detailed reporting. So the commission provides start of day and end of day reports detailing the number of persons registered at each registration center. They also go on to say provisional register. All political parties receive a copy of the provisional register prior to the voters register exhibition to enable them to scrutinize the register and to identify any issues that they want to raise during the exhibition. Right. Then the final register, all political parties receive a copy of the final register and can still raise any issues they have with the commission. And so all of these roadmaps have been put in place to ensure that every political party is satisfied with the process that have been put in place by the Electoral Commission.
But clearly the NDC is not satisfied with what the EC says that they are put in place to address the concerns that they have. And so that's the reason why they held this conference. They've made it clear that if the EC does not address the issues, they probably will take the laws into their own hands and do things that will guarantee them some kind of fairness in the electoral process. But what is the position of the MPP on this matter? Haruna Mohammed is the Deputy General Secretary of the party, and he joins me via phone. Mr. Mohammed, always a pleasure to have you on the post. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Right. So, Prof, you heard the NDC and the concerns they have. The Electoral Commission provided reasons why they were unable to provide the serial numbers, and it boils down to security concerns. Does this position taken by the EC finds favor with you?
Thank you very much. I would like to take the opportunity for listeners out there and viewers. Indeed, the NDC is learning very quick and faster because we did advise them after the 2020, after the 2012 elections to be very vigilant. But they are acting in a manner that we find it very strange because they have been making instant requests from the Electoral Commission, which in our history has never happened before. This numbers in the history have not respected the chapters. And from the background, having of these things might hinder the match that I use for particular election. Of the reasons why Cabo as personal use kind of actually to a place to for that cover that was done in the chapel. We welcome the request that made, and I've also seen some response to the committee. They about security, also like target money, which is and one very high for social stuff. What it is engineering and in the IT systems. We'll look at the collective manner to see how well with the new. Yes, the press. We had just them to take a people, but all.
The land is bad. It appears we've lost Mr. Haruna Mohammed on the line. We'll try and see if we can re-establish connection with him. The line wasn't the best, and we'll see if we can do that. The NDC, they've made it clear that they are unhappy with the EC refusal to provide serial numbers to the BVR case being used in the limited registration exercise, and they say that it is not something that finds favor with them. The EC explanation is that for security and other reasons, that's how come they are unable to do so, because some people can just use a serial number, tap onto the system, and compromise the whole electoral, process. And for that reason, they have been explaining in a press statement that came up this afternoon. And the NDC went ahead to hold this news conference to also express their disagreement with the Electoral Commission. So let's try again. Prof, so you were making a point about why you think that the NDC may not be right in the demands that they are making.
I'm not questioning whether they are right or not. I'm only mentioning and stating some clear points in terms of security points,
right.
In terms of endangering the IT systems of the Electoral Commission. From my point of view of what they have written and their response, it seems to make a lot of sense from what the Electoral Commission has said. But I'm not dismissing the request of the NDC. But I just said that it is good they are learning very fast from our advice, because the last time we were electing their General Secretary and National Chairman, I advised them that they should take IT very serious and to learn, or probably come to us and we'll teach them how to collate results. But they are learning too fast, because these issues that they are asking for are system-based, and this could also endanger the transparency and the integrity of our election system, which I find it very strange. But however, by the Electoral Commission's calendar, by 15th of May or so, there will be an IPAC meeting. We will judge all. We're not going to fight with them. They should take it very cool, because this election we are going into, they should not be determined that they are going to win the elections. It is not cast in stone that every 8 years the government leaves. It is your work that leaves, but you will remain if your work is very good.
I'm just wondering whether this matter did not come up at IPAC before the limited registration exercise.
Elton, it has not been discussed, but in the history of our elections, these issues they are asking for has never been given to political parties. You know, we brought up the issue of biometric system in Ghana after we had written the stolen verdict in 1992. We changed the platform of elections through these constitutional proceedings that we have always had with the Electoral Commission. In 2012, when we were advocating for this, when they were in government and justice has to lose its eye, and then Gabi and Co were whipped, and all of us were beaten with hot water and what have you. But lo and behold, we have a biometric system. Even in 2020, when we saw that minors were spoiling the integrity of the register and were pushing for a fresh register, they said no, because of COVID, we should not do that. But we went ahead. We had it today. So they have always against technology. But I'm surprised that they have turned out to be requesting for what they should not be. But who knows? This is a democracy. We can discuss that, but this has never come to the discussion table in IPAC in any form or in any manner.
The easy solution to the concerns of the NDC is that they have gazetted centers where all voter registration centers are officially gazetted. All political parties, stakeholders have access to this information. There is also polling agents oversight, which means every party has a rep there, and they see through whatever happens at the polling center. They have detailed reporting. The commission provides start of day and end of day report, detailing the number of persons registered at each polling center, provisional register after every day exercise, and of course, all parties will receive copy of the provisional register prior to the voters' register exhibition. So enable them scrutinize the provisional register and to identify any issue that they want to raise during the exhibition. And also final register that the party will have access to it. They also have the opportunity to participate in the district registration review committee. So these are measures that the EC says that while the NDC may have concerns with their inability to provide the serial numbers, these are in place to ensure fairness and transparency in this process. The MPP find this acceptable?
Elton, the EC spoke from the point of the CI. If you read the CI careful, CI 91 and CI 126, it's not different from what the EC has said.
Exactly, that is the
There's
quotation.
nowhere within the CI as amended in 126 where they've said that the serial numbers of biometric case will be the political party. It's not mentioned there. So if they are an extra something that serious transparency of our election system, there is definitely a response to that. But I don't think that if so, I would not be speaking for the East, but I'm speaking from the CI, which is regulating on registrations in Ghana. And when it lets, we also look at CI1.
My final question will be, from your position, are you okay with the way the exercise has gone so far? This afternoon, we heard from the majority leader, Alexander Fayemake, who is complaining about non-functional BVR case in his constituency. generally, is the party okay with the way things are panned out?
No, not really, but it's too early days yet to be able to attribute some of these things to an entire failure. But this is 21 days, and I believe that something can still be done. The first day, it was very terrible. The second day has been good. The third day, even though there are reports, which we as party is not satisfied, but we believe that the election commission can still make a lot of change in the registration process. Right. And they have also assured that if there is any issue, they address add number of to the registration. When they have to go in the past, and we believe that they will do their work.
Right, Prof, thank you very much. And that's the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP, Haruna Mohammed, saying that they may not be okay 100% in terms of how the Electoral Commission has conducted itself in the limited registration exercise. They are satisfied with the way things are, and they are hoping that the upcoming Inter-Party Advisory Committee will help iron out all the issues around this limited voter registration exercise. We'll stay with the Electoral Commission because the EC is giving notice to individuals and political party agents against any form of disturbances in the ongoing limited voter registration exercise across the country. The police yesterday arrested 3 individuals for alleged disruption of the registration process at Tepa in the Asantehene region. The arrested individuals, Abbas Abubakar, George Vino, and Abdul Karim, were allegedly involved in a physical altercation which resulted in a temporary disturbance. The EC says although the incident did not happen inside the registration center, individuals must not engage in any form of chaos that would disrupt the registration exercise. Nana Bashiji Adam has been monitoring the exercise and has come to with this report.
The first 2 days of the limited voters registration exercise did witness some challenges, including internet and technical hitches affecting the registration process, leaving some first-time applicants stranded. But the Electoral Commission here in the Ashanti region says it is resorting to not just online registration, but offline registration to make sure the first-time applicants do get their voters' ID card on time. Benjamin Banobu is the Ashanti Regional EC boss.
There are certain things that are beyond the control of the Commission, and one of them is the internet stability. The first day we experienced initial instability with our internet connectivity. It came back and then we were able to work after 11 o'clock thereabout. Yesterday too we have a similar experience during the afternoon. And later on it came and then we continue to work. But to every plan, there should be a plan B. When the situation is such that we cannot control the internet connectivity issues, Commission issued a directive that we go offline. We'll be using offline until such time that the connectivity issue is restored, so that anyone who comes to register will have the opportunity to do so. It is not in our interest to see people queuing at our offices, waiting to be registered. Some people came day 1, they came day 2 again, and today they are there. So Commission in his wisdom and in his quest to ensure that all the people who are qualified when they come to us are covered, has indicated or issued a directive that we go offline to enable us to register all the qualified applicants who come to our registration centers.
On the second day of the registration exercise at the Tepa district, the Ghana Police Service did arrest some 3 persons alleged to have caused chaos at the district where the registration exercise was taking place. The Electoral Commission says the alleged chaos did not happen at its center, but it is cautioning persons against causing any form of disruption in the ongoing registration process.
Nobody should even dare to try to disrupt the process, because the security is there and the security will take up such people. And they will not even allow them to get closer to our centers, as you indicated in Tepa. They were not allowed to even get to the registration centers. I don't know the location where the disturbances took place, but it was not at our place. And the security are there. Every center you go, you will meet no less than 5 police officers. They are there to protect the people there and to protect their equipment. And nobody will be permitted to disrupt our programs.
But the Ashanti Regional EC boss Benjamin Banobio is cautioning political party agents against busing of first-time applicants to its centers. It says that although it has no official report on this particular incident, party agents should not resort to busing of first-time applicants to various registration centers.
We do not encourage political parties that are busing people. And I have not seen political parties doing that yet. But that is not the position of the commission for political parties to bus people. We do not encourage that, and we warn them. In fact, we told them during our meeting at the Rai Park and at Dai Park. And so the buses, you see, they are all commercial buses, and these are buses. Some of them come in the groups, and then they board those buses and come to the centers. We have not observed or seen the political parties doing that, but when you see that, we take them on. If they are accusing us and they have evidence, then they should report them to the police because it's against the law. It's against the law.
From the Ashanti Regional Head Office of the Electoral Commission, my name is Zana Boachi Dankwa Yatom, Kumasi.
And of course, we are back from your election headquarters here on Joy News. Let's talk about business and the challenges that businesses are facing in the country, because the Ghana Chamber of Commerce is warning more foreign businesses will stop operating in the country unless government fixes concerns of industry and the business community. And notable brands such as Glovo, Nivea, Jumia Foods, Unilever, Ghana's Lipton Tea, Dark and Lovely, Bet365 Game, and BIC have all decided to exit the Ghanaian market, sparking concerns about the possible effect on job creation and the broader economic growth issues. Now, Director with Dayless Finance, Ken Thompson, is blaming government for creating a hostile business environment in the country.
For me, it's very simple. The government of Ghana doesn't care about the private sector. The government doesn't care about creating jobs. The government's not interested. It's only interested in governments and the people that benefit from the largest. The government of Ghana does not listen. I mean, every time we complain, they reel out projects that have been done. We build this block. We build this garden. We build this farm. Who cares? I mean, we're in a situation where we're living day to day. We cannot plan. We don't know where we invest. Our hard-earned savings are gone. And, nobody's listening. The government does not care. All the government cares about is spending more and more money on itself. So what's the consequence? Interest rates are high. You can't do business. The population is poor, so they can't spend. Infrastructure, critical infrastructure is weak. Water, electricity, roads is weak, and when you can find it, it's expensive. If you start a business last year, 100,000, that 100,000 now is worth probably 30,000. I mean, who does business like this?
Well, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Commerce, Mark Eduabuaje, is warning more businesses, local and foreign, will fold up unless government fix the concerns of the business community. Now, he joins me with more. Mr. Eduabuaje, it's a pleasure to have you here on the post. Good afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
So, I mean, the countdown, and you have this, international brands, Glovo, Jumia, Nestle, Unilever, they've taken the Lipton Tea out of Ghana. We have some others that are also having issues with the business climate in the country. For that reason, they think that maybe the returns is not doing them good and they want to relocate. But basically, it's about whether the environment in the country is conducive enough for businesses to grow. You are in the sector. What do you make of what is happening?
Well, I think for us, we are not surprised some of these international companies are exiting. In fact, we expressed this concern about a year or two ago that we continue to create an environment that is hostile, environment that is not conducive for businesses. The obvious option is that businesses will collapse. And those that, for instance, those international companies, they have options. So they will exit and go to where they think that the environment is conducive. And that is what we are seeing now. Nobody set up a business, especially those foreign companies, just for the fact that they want to come to Ghana or their father Christmas. They set up business to make profits because people have invested in the businesses and they have to create value for their shareholders. So they are looking for profit. So if you're an environment where your cost of operation is very high, you don't even make enough money to be able to take care of your operational cost and also to be able to defray part of your fixed cost, then it doesn't make economic sense to be in that environment. And there are other countries that are doing well in terms of creating the right environment for businesses. So they will exit and go to where they are accepted, where the environment is good, where they have a very low interest rate. Our interest rates in Ghana at the moment is among the highest in the whole world. I mean, moving around 45%. So if you are working in an environment like that and you need money to expand, you cannot get it. So you go to where you can get the money. The cost of utility is also very high. Check electricity, for instance, check water. We have had consistent increase in electricity and water, and they all fit into the cost of doing business. The cedi has been depreciating. Is very vulnerable to just the slightest shock when you see the cedi depreciating. From the beginning of the year to as at today, the cedi has depreciated close to about 15%, which means that you have lost 15% of the money of your cedi if you want to convert into dollar. And for these businesses, they invest in dollars. So when they are exiting or when they want to pay money to their shareholders, they have to pay in dollars. So they will convert the cedi into dollars. It means now they need more cedis to be able to get the dollar that they invested earlier. And of course, revenue is not coming in because people are not able to buy the goods that they are producing because of high inflation. The purchasing power had gone down. So it's a very complicated environment. And for any rational business, they are looking for areas where they will make profit. So they will exit. The challenge is for local businesses with no option to leave.
I was just going to come to that about if the foreign companies are leaving. It should be an advantage to the local entrepreneur to take advantage of their absence and then scale up production or fill in the gap. But before I ask you that, I mean, the issues that you enumerated, is it a reflection of the economy or bad government policies that clearly is fueling this, exits of these companies?
So the policies reflect in how the economy perform in terms of the macroeconomic environment. So for instance, if you take a tax policy, which is from basically the fiscal sector, the Ministry of Finance, we have a lot of taxes and we have complained over the years. We keep on seeing new taxes virtually day in, day out. So it's governance issue, it's also a policy issue. Whenever you are introducing a tax, you should know that the incidence of tax will be on somebody. That somebody is the business that is already not doing well, by imposing numerous tax on that business. So that business cannot survive. So the policies come together to create that environment. But the role of government is to create a conducive environment for businesses, and government can only do that through policies and programs. So the policies and programs that are bringing out is what is affecting the macroeconomic environment. The depreciation surely is also one of the factors. If you borrow more than you can pay for, the value of your cedi or the value of your currency will go down, and that's what we experienced. So that's why they went into the DDEP to ensure that we restructure our debts, both local and international, to be able to pay. Now we are looking at how the bilateral creditors will also come in, and also the private people that we have borrowed from.
Right.
So people are also living because the environment is hostile. They are living and they invested in dollars. Once they are living, they have to convert the cedi into dollars. So you put pressure on the dollar. So the demand goes up, and of course the cedi will depreciate. So it's just government policy that is not really helping. And obviously, for instance, the borrowing is not from this current government. We have said this for the past 10 years. They keep on accumulating until such a time that it's difficult for us to pay. And your city will definitely depreciate.
So I asked, I mean, if for example, Glovo has signaled its intention to leave the country, and there is a local company, a rival local company, that should be good news for the rival local company, isn't it?
No, it's not. Because the reasons the Glovo and the Jumia cited for leaving is the same business environment that these local and domestic businesses are operating. They are not operating from a different environment. Interest rates are high, taxes are still there, utilities and all those things. I was giving a typical example. About 4 or 5 years ago, you could see these courier companies crisscrossing Accra, delivering goods here and there. Now go to the market or go out and you hardly see them. Most of them have collapsed because at that time, 4 years ago, a bike, simple bike, was costing 3,000. Now it's 20,000 Ghana cedi because of depreciation. More than 5 times the cost. Fuel prices are going up. So these businesses, their margins are very small. So anything that will increase their cost of operation or reduces their revenue will create a case where they will run at a loss. So most of them are running at a loss. And of course, their business model operates in such a way that they deliver goods, they deliver food. So they can only do that when somebody has purchased the food or has purchased the goods and you have to deliver. People are not buying the food because of these taxes. People are not buying the goods because of these taxes. So they don't virtually have anything to do if people are not buying. But if you have an environment that people have money in their pocket, their purchasing power is very high, as we had 5 years ago, and people are buying, then these courier companies, Jumia and all those people, will be distributing the goods as freely as possible, and they'll be making their money. So such hostile environment, those with small margins are the ones that will fall off. They are the ones that will collapse. The foreign ones are gone. The local ones, most of them have collapsed. And I have said that if you don't put in place all the pragmatic measures as soon as possible, even those who are operating will also go off. They will collapse. And other businesses who have also have any link with this kind of businesses will also collapse. If you are producing or you are preparing food, people cannot buy. Distributors cannot distribute. Of course, that restaurant will also not survive. So we are in a very serious situation. What that we are asking for is that there's opportunity for us to improve the environment. There's opportunity for us to reevaluate the taxes that we have introduced and see its impact. Is it really helping businesses? Is there any way we can do to bring some relief to businesses, to motivate private sector operators, even motivate the domestic operators that now that Jumia and Glovo are not there, what are we doing for these domestic businesses to be able to take advantage of their absence, to do business, expand, and also create more employment? Those who were working with Jumia and those working with Glovo, most of them, by now, they are in the house. What they can do is just get a bike that probably they were using and doing Okada. How sustainable is that business? Those small courier companies, some of them were employing as many as 30 people. I have evidence of that.
Right.
I went to the shop and they have totally collapsed. So it's the same environment that these foreign companies are operating, that they have decided to leave because it's not good for them. It's the same environment that the domestic businesses are also operating. So we have to change the model. We have to help them create the right environment, and I'm sure that the private sector will take advantage of that.
Yeah, but my final question as we wrap up on this conversation, and I mean, we're having this same conversation, that the economic condition in the country does not only affect the business, it affects the ordinary again. I was having this conversation with a colleague of mine this afternoon, where he told me that around 2010, he had started work, he was earning around 1,000 Ghana cedi. The cedi to the dollar was 2 cedis. So the 1,000 Ghana cedi gave him $500. Now $500 is 7,000 Ghana cedis. So for somebody who is still earning 1,000 cedis, his situation is getting, he's getting poorer and poorer by the day. In brief, what would be your solution that you think government should implement immediately? Because if this is not an next year or so, I wonder how many business will still be surviving.
Yes, obviously, the example that you give, there are a lot of Ghanaians that are going through Now, if you need $1,000, you need over 14,000 Ghana cedis to be able to get just $1,000.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? So all the things that we have said is to also work with government to create the right environment. I have given you a number of things that we can do. In fact, in the other countries that are doing well, they listen to what the businesses are saying. They evaluate the impact of these policies and see whether they are good. It looks as if our people are not listening to us. It's like when we ask that they create the right environment, it's like they are doing businesses a favor by creating the right environment. That's not to say that is not the right thing. For me, we have gone to IMF hoping that it would have resolved a lot of issues. I still think that we still have a long way to go. Government should cut down its expenditure. They should look at how they can reduce these taxes, how they can create the right environment. Utility tariffs must go down. The water tariffs are going up. All these things complicate the issue. So we have made a number of proposals to government. We are waiting that one day they will call us to also have a discussion on how we can work together to create the environment. And otherwise, as we said, within a year, if we should continue this way, inflation that we have said it had gone down at the moment is 25%,
right,
which is way above the government, the Bank of Ghana's target of 8% plus or minus 2. So let's take the maximum of 8 plus, which is 10. Our inflation now is about 25%, it's 15% higher. And I'm sure that within May, June, we are going to have an increase in inflation. That will further reduce the purchasing power of a typical Ghanaian. So we are getting worse, we are getting poorer by the day by some of these policies. Right. And I think that government can work on it. Government can listen to the private sector. Some of the taxes, for instance, COVID tax, for instance, we have said several times that that particular tax has outlived its usefulness. I don't know of any country that imposed a COVID tax because there was COVID. COVID is well gone over 3 or 4 years. We still have COVID tax. We have said they should remove it. Now, if you remove COVID tax, it means that those taxes that are paying, those that are paying when they go to the restaurant, now they will not be paying it, so they'll be having the money. If you go to the port, there's COVID tax. Those who are importing will not impose COVID tax on us. Those COVID tax can be taken out of the system. The growth and sustainability levy tax that we spoke about, these are levies that are supposed to be for a short term. If you have any difficult situation, you impose it. It started from the first time, and then they said they are going to do it for 2 years. Now we have been changing the color of this and giving it different names. It's been there for over 22 years.
Right. And
now we are giving it a different name. And these are taxes that are affecting businesses. Why don't we take those taxes out and ensure that the businesses are also given the room to operate? In fact, if businesses are making profit, they will rather pay more tax than this post-production tax that we are imposing.
Okay.
These are post-production taxes.
Sure.
And they just increase the cost of production and then reduce the productivity of business. Let's look at post-production taxes that they have produced and they are making profit and they are paying higher taxes. And the people that businesses are laying off, these people will also be given revenue, their salaries, they will also pay taxes. So the government will rather get more taxes, but rather empowering the private sector to produce more, make money, and pay the taxes.
Right. Mr. Makadu Abuaje is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Chamber of Commerce. Now, the Deputy Trade and Industry Minister, Michael Ochebefi, told us that they had a meeting with the business community operating in the country. They understand their concerns and they've put in place measures to address them. And he says the government is not happy with what is going on in the business environment and is working around the clock to ensure that they reverse whatever challenges that exist in the business community, with the aim that Ghana will continue to maintain its position as the #1 preferred investment destination, especially here in West Africa. Thank you very much, Mr. Abuaje, Mr. Mark Abuaje, for your time this afternoon. Now, are you tired of the same old political rhetoric? Do you believe it is time for a change that truly represents the voices of our youth, women, and children? Introducing Nana Kwame Bediako, the presidential aspirant who is not just promising change, but actively working to make it happen. Nana Bediako is not your typical politician. He's a visionary leader with a passion for making our country better through innovative industrial revolution. Together, we can change the political narrative and create a government that truly represents the interests of all citizens. Join Nana on this journey to build a better and inclusive future for all by contributing to the Save Ghana Fund campaign. Your support, no matter the amount, is not just a donation, it is an investment in the shared desire for a more prosperous, equitable, and better nation. You can visit www.nkb.com.gh, or you can dial *887 *2024 hash to donate. And of course, this is a sponsored announcement. This is the pause. We take a short break. When we return, we have more, including the remembrance of the 126 soccer fans that died 23 years ago at Accra Sports Stadium. We shall be back. Welcome back to the pause here on Joy News with me, Elton Brobe. Now, on a sad note, 23 years ago, 126 soccer fans lost their lives after a midweek football match between Accra House of Oak and Kumasi Asantehene. And it degenerated into violence after the final whistle. Accra House of Oak scored 2 late goals to defeat Kotoko 2-1, resulting in disappointed fans throwing plastic seeds and bottles onto the pitch. Now, the police responded by firing tear gas into the crowd. Panic and stampede ensued as fans tried to escape. Now, gates were locked and the stadium's compromised design left a bottleneck, fewer exits than originally planned. Now, we'll be engaging Mr. Herbert Mensah, who was chairman of Asantehene at the time, shortly. But first, here's a report on the main disaster put together by our sports team.
Otumfuo try to look for a shot. This should be the winner. This should be the winner. Ismail and Kumasi Asantehene in all sorts of trouble. House of Oak 2, Kumasi Asantehene 1.
Never again. That's the inscription you see on the statue erected at the entrance of the Accra Sports Stadium in memory of the 126 people who perished 23 years ago. The Sam Okudzeto Commission of Inquiry set out to lay the groundwork for that. And they did, with a number of what was initially thought to be seminal recommendations.
So the commission recommended, among other things, the prosecution of 6 police officers. But after trial, all the charges brought against them, including the charge of involuntary manslaughter, were dismissed after the prosecutor failed to establish beyond reasonable doubt that the conduct of these police officers was responsible for the death of the 127 people. There was also the establishment of the Stadium Disaster Fund, which the Commission recommended government putting 2 billion cedis at the time, which is now in today's terms 200,000 Ghana cedis in the first year of that particular fund. And that fund was to go into, among other things, taking care of the children of all of the victims of that particular May 9 disaster. And for those that didn't have children, there were 54 of them specifically. The Commission recommended the payment of a one-time ex gratia of 10 million, which in today's terms would be 1,000 Ghana cedis. And that money was to go to the parents or a legal representative.
One of the unintended legacies of the Commission's work is the fixture itself. I'm not sure who set out to enforce it, but over time, the idea of hosting a Hartsevuk and Asantehene match at night has become somewhat of a taboo. In 23 years, the only time the two teams have met in a late kickoff match was in 2022 when Hartsevuk beat Asantehene by 2-1 at the Accra Sports Stadium on 4th March. It was a President's Cup match on a Friday night.
Ball header down, opportunity, and that's it! Efia Bania gets the goal there for Accra Hartsevuk! It has been happening, and finally thus!
I mean, between 2001 and 2024, a lot has changed with football all over the world. If you want your brand to compete, you have to look at the uniqueness of your brand. If your brand is in a position where in 2024 you are competing with so many eyeballs, and let's say if a game between Kotoko and Hearts can be played at, let's say, after 6 p.m. to get returns on that, why would you still want to be playing it, if you like, in the hot sun at 3 p.m., for example, on a Sunday afternoon with all the competing interests that come with a game these days?
That was Kwame Jumo-Ajimai, Communications Director at Premier League club Legon Cities. His views are shared by Dr. Godfred Akoto-Boafo, a football administrator who once consulted for Liberty Professionals while they were still in the league.
For the period that we were in, the committee's recommendations were not perfect, but some of them were legitimate, particularly with restoring fund safety at Kotoko and Hearts games. The impact has not been felt as much because we have not implemented that aspect in full, even immediately after that. The one that we held true to was the firm rule about not playing a Kotoko Hearts game at night, which, of course, in the era that we find ourselves, makes very little sense. Apart from that, we could have done better with the sporting side of the recommendations that were made.
23 years on, the recommendations and the disaster itself are still fresh in our memory. But just how much has changed? Experienced journalist Jerome Ochre has his take.
I don't think a lot has changed. If anything at all has changed, it's mostly about what we do after the incidents have occurred, and not necessarily what we are doing to prevent or preempt those incidents from occurring. Most of the time, it's about hoping and praying. And we hope and pray that nothing happens. But if something happens, for me, reactions have always been what I would say is lip service.
There was one that impacted even generally how our stadiums would have been built going forward in terms of the number of exits that were supposed to be present at a stadium. Because I remember was that there was a game, I went to a game at then Robert Mensah Sports Stadium. It was a massive game. And if you will come from that part of the country, that stadium has only one gate.
Yeah.
At the time, and everybody was squeezing through that tiny gate. And this was 4 or 5 years after the recommendations on the kind of things that were supposed to be present at Category A games, basically, so to say, for fan safety, and also the training of policemen, the interaction between security services and fans. I think that those things have not really gone well.
Let's talk about the specifics then. Safety and security protocols, stadium architecture, the very things we swore to fix. How have we gone about fixing them?
Over the years, what we failed to do was we're just lifting solutions from elsewhere and seeing if we can also implement that. But in security, you have to always profile your. If you take 100% of hooligan acts or incidents or disturbances that we have had, for the past 5 years, about 80 to 90% will be attack on match officials.
That was Julius Emuna, Safety and Security Officer at the Ghana Football Association, and once upon a time, the club licensing manager. So what has to give?
One very important thing that we have still not been able to achieve or still not been able to do as stakeholders, district stakeholders, not just the GFA. Thankfully, the current Safety and Security Committee led by the chairman is trying to get that in place. It's arrest. And let's not forget that. It's arrest. People who are in football, spectators who are in football, have this notion that misconduct, hooligan acts, criminal acts at match venues cannot be settled at the law court. That has to be drummed down to the people. Through actions, there should be examples set. The police should be able to make arrests of people who attack physically officials, opposition players, and even spectators at match venues. When these arrests are done and people get to know that doing said acts can lead you before court.
I keep saying that if I walk on the street of Accra and I hold a club in my hand or any object and go around striking people I disagree with, the police won't let me go beyond a kilometer. I will be arrested. But I can put up the same behavior at the stadium per what I have seen. And there's a high chance that I will still sleep comfortably at home the next night. And I think that is what is lacking in terms of dealing with the security situation at our venues. If we will have the police getting hold of the hooligans and using one or two of them to set an example by taking them to the law courts, prosecuting them, and making sure they get a conviction against them, and the whole public knowing that violence at the football venues is not anything to be countenanced, I think the degree to which we see these incidents would be reduced to the barest minimum. Until then, we can only hope that the Ghana Football Association, its members, the sports ministry, the security agencies, football fans, and all stakeholders continue to do their bit in order to force the cultural reset we wish to see. For Joy Sports, Victor Achutamaklu.
So we are remembering the 126 soccer fans that lost their lives. I mean, they went to the Accra Sports Stadium to have fun, to enjoy good football, and at the end of the day, they were carried in body bags to the morgue. Now, Herbert Mensah was the chairman of Asantehene at the time, currently the president of Rugby Africa, and it's always a pleasure to speak to you, Mr. Mensah. You're welcome to the pause.
Thank you, Alton. Good afternoon.
Yeah, so if I check the time, is 4:13 p.m. I'm sure 23 years ago around this time, you were getting ready to go to the Accra Sports Stadium to lead your team into battle against Accra House of Folk.
Yes, around this time, we would have been checking up on what has to be done before any match with our big rivals here in Accra. We would have had briefings at national security. We would have been looking at the logistics and then making sure that our own team and structure was in place for the match.
And then after the game, I saw you on TV with the late Komla Domo moving up and down because something had gone wrong, and you were helping to have this iron gate broken into so that, soccer fans that were trapped in the attempt to get out of the stadium will have free access. And then when the dust got settled, we started counting bodies.
Yes, it was a terrible time. The conditions were wrong. Things occurred during the match that provoked the supporters. The police had fired tear gas indiscriminately. And there was complete chaos. By the time we had been called, that there was confusion at that point. People were trying to exit. They could not exit because the gate at the bottom was locked. By the time we reached the bottom, we couldn't get in. When we went to the top, bodies were tangled. Some were falling from great heights. It was complete chaos. The security services had disappeared. The ambulance services were not there. It was a lot of confusion. 23
years on, you've always kept the flame, burning. And every year you hold this remembrance walk in honor of those who died during the process. I'm wondering the motivation. It's been a yearly affair, and this weekend you are doing another one. What really is the driving force behind the yearly remembrance of the fans that died that day?
Well, first and foremost, a tragedy of that nature affected me, and I think it affected anybody who was there. I carried so many bodies that day, it was unbelievable. Some people say 20, 30 bodies. You then, Komla then called me, we went to the military hospital. There were 96 bodies there laying down in such a terrible state. And you then realize that you need to give respect to those people. Any time of tragedy, you need to. And in the sporting world, I think the problem that we often have is that we don't realize that the most important stakeholders are the supporters. It's not big men, are the supporters. If the supporters do not enter your stadium, you don't have a football. If they don't go to the Nou Camp, Barcelona is not Barcelona. If they don't go to Old Trafford, which is why we always try to make sure that Sacrum is always full up. And it's full not of big men, it's full of people who are the supporters. They know more about football than the big men do. They know the players, they know everything that happens. And for a tragedy of that nature, to visit the families, so many families that I visited afterwards, Heart supporters, Kotoko supporters, and to see some of them, the sheer poverty. Some of them could not bury the dead. Others were just in a state of mourning. Fathers had gone to Accra for the match. Children had run away from school to watch. Families were devastated. And the way to go was to show respect. They do it in Europe. And I always believe we're ahead of the Europeans. So why should Hillsborough, other stadiums they every year celebrate, have minutes of silence, families come together, constant tuition and education. The real heroes are the people who lost their lives.
But I mean, and on a personal note, I mean, I remember this lady, Auntie BC in Kumasi, who had given birth at the time the husband went to the Accra Sports Stadium and did not return. It was counted among the dead. And the baby is now, 23 years old. And you've seen to their development, if you like. And I mean, what gets you to do some of these things for the people?
Well, there are many, we don't like to call out names, but there are many today on a daily basis. Somebody like, there's a young lady in Accra, I say young, her name is Rani, who lost her husband. I think she had just got married as a teenager or just over. And every day she communicates with me. Every day we send messages to one another. And there are many others. Nehemiah in Kumasi, who's just graduated, he's done finance now. He's constantly in touch. Some want their privacy, so you don't see them anymore. You move on. But the beautiful thing about this family is that other victims have joined us. We've had the flood victims. We've had people suffering from caustic soda intake joining us. The Deso Foundation has the disabled have joined us every year. And now for the last 2 years, we have the Shenyang and Shenyue Hole in the Heart Foundation. The owner is an extraordinary man called YC, who owns the Sunda Group, Cleansoft, and other products. And he has invested in 35 children since January of last year. So they all become, the main ninth structure is now bigger than just the football alone. It's an awareness thing. We have to think about our brother. We have to think about our sister. We have to think about how we give back. But of course, the central theme is football. And we move with these people. And hopefully in people not forgetting. Then every time you hear of some nonsense at the stadium,
right,
people misbehaving, they must look over and remember days like this, tragedies like this, families destroyed, and find a way to check themselves.
But every year you do this remembrance walk. And the state Ghana, I mean, some of the victims, those that died, those who got maimed, may not have been able to be productive. The state Ghana, you think that the state Ghana has done well in terms of compensating for the loss and for the injured, so that life goes on for them in a way that is acceptable?
Well, I'm not sure the support structures. So many complain they don't have enough support structures. Government and the system cannot support in perpetuity. And I think that is part of it. And I think society needs to get together. 5-6 years ago, I brought up the stadium disaster victims from Ellis Park, South Africa. And I brought up some of the families to Ghana so that they would meet with the Ghanaian families. And it was a beautiful thing to watch, where they exchange moments and you realize that the stadium disaster in South Africa or here or London, the loss of life is loss of life. And people quite often need a helping hand, not necessarily money, although money is critical, but to understand that they are still cared for, they are respected. And I think that's why some of the other groups like the flood victims and the rest join us as well every year, year in, year out, that we meet. Not only on May 9th, we meet during the year. There's celebrations. Even though I'm an Anglican,
right,
I celebrate Eid with a lot of them. We go to the mosque tomorrow. We shall be at the mosque in Kumasi. And therefore, it's something that affects us as Ghanaians, not a religion, not a gender, not a tribe, but it affects all of us as Ghanaians.
Right. So this weekend you are holding another remembrance walk?
We will do it. It will be a slightly smaller one than usual because, this is a great week as well in Asantehene. My father, my friend Otumfuo, is not only his birthday, which we normally try and celebrate with him every year, but he's also been on seat for a long, long time.
25 years.
Absolutely. He's still strong and is there for his week. His Excellency, the President, is, I think, also at the airport in Kumasi. So there are issues of state which are bigger than us. So we will make it a smaller event just to give respect to the two. And then we shall pay respect to Otumfuo. And if we're even lucky, you never know whether we will. You shouldn't forget that His Excellency, the President, is the only president to have seen the families a few years ago when they went to Jubilee House and he granted them audience. So we are very, very honored and pleased. But we will, and please people, we've tried to restrict the numbers this year to make it much smaller than the 8, 10, 12,000 that normally follow us, because we do understand the sensitivities of the day in Asantehene.
Before I let you go, I mean, your advice to soccer fans, and we still see pockets of disturbance in some of our stadium. I mean, as we remember this day, what would you tell soccer fans?
Well, on a day like this, we celebrate life. We also respect those who have passed. We really do. And we can only, as we do every year, ask people to live and learn from what has happened. If you cannot self-regulate, then the system itself has got to be better upstanding. And I think it works in many ways. I think the security services need to be proactive rather than reactive. The administrators of the game have also got to change and look at how they look at themselves, and then the supporters as well. It is a combined effort from all around, but certainly those who refuse to change, to learn, then things have to change. Not just going to court, because our systems can be slow, but you can fast track and have a fast track system where you have accused, the evidence is clear, there's video evidence, there's other evidence, and you find yourself within 48 hours in front of a magistrate. And maybe you need cooling off, or maybe you need a longer period. We need to change the image of the game. We really do, because we have some of the greatest athletes in the world, and yet we're underperforming in so many ways. So we really need to get together and make sure that everything is the way it should be.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Herbert Mensah. And we'll join you in Kumasi on Saturday for that remembrance walk.
Thank you very much indeed.
Mr. Herbert Mensah is the president of Rugby Africa. He was the chairman of Kumasi Asantehene during that ill-fated match that ended the lives of 126 soccer fans. Now, let's stay in the Ashanti regional capital and, of course, in the Ashanti Kingdom, because he's a monarch whose exemplary leadership has brought esteem, glory, and dignity to his kingdom and etched the rich traditions and culture of Asantes into global history books. Now, Asantehene Otumfuo here to the second, the 16th occupant of the Golden Stool, has become the beacon of peace and the true leader per excellence. Emmanuel Bright could tell the tale of the gallant man of Asante, Barima Kwakuduya, whose legacies will be ingrained in the hearts and minds of not just his people, but Ghana and the world.
Monday, April 26, 1999, when Barima Kwakuduya, as he was then known, swore the oath of allegiance to Asanteman and ascended the Golden Stool, Sikeja Kofi. He became the 16th Asante monarch and bore the name of the first Asantehene, Otumfuo Nana Osei Tutu, after the death of his brother, Nana Opokuwari.
You have to vie for the position with a number of people. In his case, about 6 people came to ask for vie for the position. And then the final authority is the Queen Mother. And the Queen Mother selected him.
His ascension came with the natural gifts of calm and radiance, which instantly inspires loyalty and motivates people around him. Not only has he won the hearts of his people, but the admiration of all, even beyond the shores of Ghana.
He doesn't discriminate. He loves everyone.
He works
here personally to ask about how we are faring.
The vision of Otumfuo II encompasses education, health, and economic development.
If we should go back in Ashanti history, it's like Osebosu, who was king of Ashanti. In the situation that we found ourselves with the negotiating, I think his diplomacy transcended everything else. He was very charming in the first meeting we had with the Victoria and Albert Museum and also with the British Museum.
Shortly after his installment, the Otumfuo II Foundation was launched as a relief plan for his people and as an extension, the whole of Ghana.
Through the World Bank assistance grant given to him, the fund was able to put up 6 classroom block, 6 teachers' apartments, Ulu, and then mechanized borehole. All this as a package for 22 different rural communities. Now we can boast of people in responsible positions in Ghana who, if not having the help offered by the king, they wouldn't have gotten to where they are now.
He made me pay bills of at least 35 students.
More than 35 school fees.
The Asantehene's pivotal role in women empowerment in the kingdom cannot be overlooked.
We knew how the system was working. If you have Queen Mother, even in programs like maybe the opening of the Jubilee Hall, normally they wouldn't have invited Queen Mothers. His Royal Majesty has really encouraged Queen Mothers for us to know our deep position as a Queen Mother and our rules of engagement. He's really encouraged Queen Mothers to be leaders in our community and just not the regalia that we put on.
Otumfuo said Tutu has brought peace and reconciliation to his kingdom since he's been in power.
Asante, ya donipa.
Asantes love and tolerate everyone.
In February 2020, he became the first person to receive the Pillar of Peace Award. This is in recognition of the efforts that he put in restoring peace to the Dabon Kingdom after nearly 2 decades of chieftaincy crises.
The patience at my sons to resolve, try and find solutions to this, but I don't want anyone to take it for granted. No.
We will continue to pay homage to the Asantehene. He has shown love to we the Moses.
Yes, sir, I say, Oman quantity, Oman and Wadinyansa. Not until for more Ghana, any area singing.
Some of the things that he's doing and some of the things that he has done suggest that he is indeed above the standard of human being. So I would say he is a mini god.
To his people, the Asantehene Otumfuo said to the second remains a true leader, a custodian of culture and a protector of the ancestral left in his care. Reporting for Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
And here in the studios of Joy News, my name is Elton Bobe. Now let's move to some other stories. And Vice President Dr. Muhammadu Bawumia is urging other African countries to emulate Ghana's digitalization agenda, which according to him has been the key driving force in the country's fight against corruption. Addressing participants at the annual general meeting of heads of anti-corruption agencies in Africa, Dr. Bawumia indicated that since passport and driver's licenses acquisition went digital, the physical exchange of monies have been eliminated, thereby blocking any avenue for bribery or financial inducement. The Vice President added that the elimination of over 50,000 ghost names on the National Service Scheme and snake through digitalization has saved the country more than 400 million cedis.
I believe are very pressing and which can easily be tackled by investments in digitalization with appropriate digital tools. First, the enormous threat bribery poses to our young people, the future of the continent. The estimates suggest that a significant percentage of people who have contact with a public official will most likely pay a bribe or be asked to. And depressingly, it's the younger people aged between 25 to 34 who are the groups most likely to pay bribes. With more than 60% of Africans under 25 years, it needs no repeating that the future of our continent is under significant threat if we don't defeat corruption soon. Clearly, if we hold back our youth through the oppressive burden of bribery, Africa will not be able to achieve its potential as a continent. Ladies and gentlemen, the second most pressing corrupt activity is revenue leakage. This is the mechanism through which corrupt people privately pocket revenue which should either have been collected on behalf of the state or collected, but for no full accounting, for which no full accounting takes place. Revenue leakage imposes additional burdens on governments in meeting financing needs for critical infrastructure and services in health, education, and roads, as well as in financing the delivery of government services, especially to the disadvantaged and vulnerable. African governments are often forced to raise debt to finance the provision of services which could have been financed mainly from government revenue but for revenue leakages. Payroll fraud leakage for African governments. It is no news to all of us, therefore, that one of the ways in which we can ensure that African governments maintain fiscal stability is fighting revenue leakage-related corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, third, we must begin to recognize that corruption is an entire ecosystem with its own, for want of a better word, value chain. Much like other forms of organized crime, there are several players and roles in putting together and executing corrupt activities.
And that's the Vice President, Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia. Now, the UPSA Law School, under the distinguished patronage of His Excellency John Ajakum-Kufuor, former President of the Republic of Ghana, is pleased to invite you to the Open for Business, the After Africa Trade and Innovation Conference. This conference is designed to provide a critical and independent platform for discussion of the new trade paths under AFTA and trade in Africa, and undertake a situational review of the adoption and implementation of AFTA since 2021. And in the process, examine the challenges confronting the smooth takeoff of the regime. The details of the conference are as follows. Now, date is the 16th and the 17th of May 2024. Time is 9 a.m. GMT to 4 p.m. GMT each day. Venue is the Kofi Ohene Kunedu Auditorium, UPSA campus. Visit the social media platform of the UPSA Law School for information on how to participate in the conference, or you can call 0245 34 7946. That's 0245 34 7946. Well, that's our show for today, Thursday. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com. Domelovo condemns Samokujeto's approval of home cash station. And of course, there's also amend relief seeking to disqualify John Mahama from the 2024 presidential election. That's Supreme Court orders Ken Kranche. Gunshot rings out as confusion rocks Cape Coast North voters registration. Plus, May 9 disaster, nothing will ever eradicate the horror of the night. That's Herbert Mensah. And of course, there are more stories on myjoyonline.com. That's our show. My name is Elton Brobe. Whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. Tomorrow on Friday, we'll have another edition of The Pulse. Good evening and take care. America Desires is up next on your television.